It's 1947, and King George VI is accompanied to Royal Ascot by both of his daughters for the first time. The enthusiasm of one young princess for the sport of horse racing is immediately apparent. 66 years later, that young princess becomes the first reigning monarch to win the Gold Cup.
Estimate might just strike the front. Simonon on the near side. Top trip finishing off well. Estimate has a neck in hand of Simonon. A royal win in the Gold Cup. Estimate has done it. Estimate and Ryan Moore has won for Her Majesty the Queen.
As in 1947, the monarch has a daughter there to share the occasion.
Over the years, I've adopted a habit of going up to the stewards in the top of the stand, which has changed over the years. So right to top, you get a wonderful view of the Gold Cup from up there. And so we always go up there, and I went up there with, funny enough, my children were there at the time. And we all watched from that. And actually, frankly, we couldn't believe our eyes because we didn't realise that this was really very much of a live chance. But it was fantastic viewing. And I know I wasn't in the box at the time, which must have been fairly noisy, but it was quite noisy where I was, actually. But I did get down to the winner's enclosure before Her Majesty, so that was nice to be able to be there when Estimate came in.
For everyone at Royal Ascot that day, Estimate's win provided one of the most memorable moments in flat racing history.
It doesn't happen very often, but we got to parade Estimate down past the crowds, past the stand, and, you know, the Queen's box is very central above the winning line, so it's easy to pick out. And I remember being able to look up and, you know, tilt my hat to her and sort of say thank you, and, you know, you could see how excited she was.
Without doubt, Estimate's win was a special moment for her owner.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, the Gold Cup is not an easy race to win. And one of the things that during the week at Royal Ascot on the lunch table for the guests before you set off are all the cups that have been won. And it's a really fine sight. So having the Gold Cup there is something really special.
Estimate's win crowned 6 decades of winners for Her Majesty at Royal Ascot.
And judging his time nicely, Smith brought Quirby along in a strong and successful challenge to beat Brunetto. So this time it was victory for the Queen, and the soon-to-be knighted Gordon had to be content with second place.
Royal Ascot and the Queen's horses have been closely entwined throughout Her Majesty's reign.
I think Royal Ascot, its history is probably quite well known, but it has a real history of its own as a place and within the history of thoroughbred racing in Britain. I think maintaining that has been a really important part of Her Majesty's interest. So I suspect she had an active, if not knowledgeable interest in the racing from the very early days, and Royal Ascot was very much part of that.
But the most resounding success took place on the final day at Ascot when Lando and Oriole won for the Queen.
In 1954, Oriole, one of the Queen's most gifted and also one of the most challenging horses, contested 2 races at Ascot.
The cheers will be heard from here to Silverstone if Oriole can win, and Oriole is hanging on very well at the moment with about 100 yards to go. It's Oriole from Vamos and Duras. Vamos on the right and Duras on the left. Vamos for France is catching Oriole. There's 50 yards to go. No, or can Oriole hang on? And at the post, Oriole wins.
Oriole's win in a race named after the Queen's parents and bred by Her Majesty's father must surely have been immensely satisfying.
Very. I can hardly imagine what it must have meant to have a horse like Oriole when you were first coming into your racing interest. But what an extraordinary story that was. And he wasn't, you know, he was a difficult horse. I remember, because I used to go around the stud at Sandringham every year with the Queen. We were introduced to the stallions and the mares. Oriole was not a horse you got very close to, certainly not when you were yay big. He was obviously a bit of a character and not easy, probably not easy to train, never mind ride. But he had fantastic ability.
Oriole's victories helped to make him the undisputed 4-year-old champion of Europe and Her Majesty the leading owner in 1954. Oriole went on to become one of his generation's leading sires.
The Queen's interest in horses as being brought up riding was always there. At what point that became much more of a method and a discipline on the breeding side, I'm not quite sure. And I think she also felt that there was a responsibility on her to maintain the bloodlines that had been established over many generations, and something she would have hated to have lost in her time.
Like other breeders, the Queen has been surprised by some horses. In 1957, it was a 2-year-old. Some thought might never be fit enough to race.
And here's the finish of the 5-furlong sprint. Pall Mall fairly romping home ahead of Troubadour and Will Summers to chalk up a victory for Her Majesty, the second of the meeting. So once again, it was hats off to the Queen. What a wonderful racing season it's been for her. Win or lose, she loves racing. But nobody minds winning, of course.
The Queen's other winner in 1957, the homebred Almeria, helped Her Majesty to the leading owner's title once again, and was to be the first of 3 Ribblesdale Stakes winners.
It was a very special day for Her Majesty because she has a runner in the Ribblesdale Stakes, our opening race, which she won with that great mare Almeria back in 1957, and she also won it with the grandam of today's runner, Phantom Gold. That was in 1979 with Expansive.
Phantom Gold just about the leader as they come down towards the furlong pole. Tulanzia's been switched to the outside. Tulanzia under Michael Cunan coming to challenge Phantom Gold. It's Phantom Gold and Tulanzia as they race up towards the line. The hats go in the air, and it's a royal triumph, and Phantom Gold has won it from Tulanzia.
The Queen has enjoyed 3 wins in the Royal Hunt Cup, Choirboy and Alexander in the 1950s, and 4 decades later, Colour Sergeant. The journey behind a winner begins as an intricate and intellectual breeding challenge.
Breeders judge success on the success of those individuals that you have bred. I was always intrigued, but she didn't really mind selling them on as long as they did well.
The journey from foal to finish line must give each horse every opportunity to realise its full potential.
You enjoy it because it is a huge feeling of satisfaction when you get it all right. And I suspect from Her Majesty's perspective, that's a lot of emotional investment in those individual horses.
Out in the centre then is Tudor Key, followed then by further back Seaway, and Free Asian has now got an opening in the centre and is starting to power home. Anybody's race with a furlong to go. Free Asian's come from last. He powers through in the centre. Seaway going with him. It's on the near side, Free Asian, who's going home full of running. Seaway can't live with him, and coming away, Free Asian. It's a royal winner. Hats off as Free Asian crosses the line. Yes, he is absolutely delighted. Her Majesty.
So this, the Queen's first winner at the new Royal Ascot in the new grandstand. Her first winner here at the Royal Meeting in the 21st century.
The Queen's total winners at Royal Ascot to date stands at 22.
I mean, to me, that looks successful. I would be thrilled if I could maintain that number of winners on a pretty regular basis. And I know there have been periods when there have been many fewer winners in the middle of that history. But I can't believe that you couldn't gauge it as being a success in the long run. And over the decades, that is a very long run.
Vamos for France is catching Oriole. There's 50 yards to go. No, or can Oriole hang on? And at the post, Oriole wins. It's Colour Sergeant from Jim Crab Premier. Colour Sergeant has buzzed in the Royal Colours. It's Phantom Gold and Tulanzia as they race up towards the line. The hats go in the air, and it's a royal triumph. And Phantom Gold has won it from Tulanzia.
Esmond has a neck in hand of Simenon. A royal win in the Gold Cup. Esmond has done it.
Royal Ascot wouldn't be the same without at least one royal win.